Thank you for joining me and Kohsuke for this talk. How did you like Gene's keynote? All right, that's good. So we'll try to keep the same momentum going. All pressure on you, all right? Okay, so the talk today is called Continuous Delivery at Cloud Scale, and we'll talk some bits of the CloudBees product, the Jenkins platform that we work on. We'll talk about the recent work that's happened in open source with Docker. And Kohsuke talked about this at the keynote, and we'll sort of do demos if all things go okay. And the third thing that we'll talk about is a project that's internally named, at CloudBees is internally named Tiger, which is about bringing Jenkins as a service into your organizations, building a Jenkins as a service to your organization. So it's going to be a fast talk between these three topics. So with that out of the way, so there is the introduction that I do for Kohsuke, the keynote, and then there's the real dirt on keynote on Kohsuke. So you heard me talk about him as this CTO, programmer extraordinaire, favorite weapon of choice is an IDE, he's coding and all that. Just scratch all of that. What I see him is, this is the view across the office. I see him as the slide boy for marketing, and his actual weapon of choice is PowerPoint. In fact, he was telling me yesterday that he wants to certify as a PowerPoint writer. So that's how it is.
Here I have with me is the VP of Product Management at CloudBees, Harpreet, and his job is to ask us to do things. So I sometimes wonder he has this Jedi mind trick. He has a way of making us want what he wants. Right? So that's a kind of great art. And
he's not entirely true. So my Jedi mind trick actually is more kung fu, and I call it the clasping hand technique that I employ every day with Kohsuke. Is like, I need some new features, give that to me. So that's about it. That's us. Very quickly getting into CloudBees. So if you don't know us already, we are the enterprise Jenkins company. We do all things Jenkins. We have a solution on Jenkins that we call the Jenkins platform that's helping organization bring CI and CD into the into in-house. And whatever you heard about from Gene Kim, we see ourselves as sort of accelerating that for organizations. As a PM, I feel fairly proud to see the list of our customers here. You can see they're the who's who. We've seen the Netflix name come up earlier. They are customers. This is a who's who of people trying to bring CI, CD, and DevOps within the organization. So I'll spend the next maybe 5 or 7 minutes talking about the Jenkins platform, and then I'll hand off to Kohsuke to talk about Docker. So the way we actually have built the product is split into what we call the team edition and the enterprise edition. And the way the product has evolved is we often see small teams bringing in Jenkins within the organization. As they start sort of iterating and delivering software faster, they start hitting into needs like, I need integration with Git. I want to make sure none of the bad commits that I make, no bad commits walk into the repository. I want to have start employing sort of security in the organization. So there are a couple of plugins around that. So that edition is focused towards smaller organizations. And as you sort of buy into DevOps, CI, CD, what tends to happen is your infrastructure grows fairly quickly. And that's where people come in and take the enterprise edition, which has things like high availability and a number of other features. And as part of the product, as we started selling this 4 years ago, the product itself evolved. The platform has something called the Operations Center in it, and where it came in is we saw a lot of organizations that brought in CI/CD. They became the beacon for other people in the organization in terms of, look, they're delivering stuff so fast, how can we do that? And you would see like Jenkins popping up all over. And at some point, what people wanted to do is have a single pane across all Jenkins within the organization. They wanted to share the slaves across groups so they're not going and spending money for machines for each division. They can consolidate that and just get developers to be on one system. So that's where our Operations Center product came in, and that's sort of available part of the Jenkins platform. And as part of this the platform and Operations Center, you end up, we've in the last year, we've added a lot of features around analytics. So analytics around build for performance, analytics around performance of Jenkins itself. And with the release of workflow, what we've done is we put a workflow stage view, that's what we call it. What it helps you do is kind of going to Gene's point, it helps you sort of visualize how your pipeline is doing, what's sort of the lead time for your pipeline as things go across the pipeline, and where should you focus. So that's part of amongst a lot of features in the product. And one other thing that Kohsuke and me have talked about in a lot of couple of juices in the last year, and I'll just touch upon it, is as organizations start bringing CI/CD, what they used to do was they would try to scale one single Jenkins and keep scaling it up, and then you had that ops guy sort of looking at this with some amount of trepidation, seeing what happens if Jenkins fails, all my developers will be impacted. So with the Operations Center, we started talking to people about building this architecture, which is a more horizontal architecture. So instead of having one Jenkins building, you end up with multiple Jenkins building, and that's connected with the Operations Center. And so we ended up talking about this reference architecture that you can use with Operations Center that helps you plan and grow your CI/CD infrastructure in the organization. So if you're facing some of these challenges, I would ask you to look up Jenkins reference architecture, and you'll find a white paper written by me at some point talking about how you can build a scalable infrastructure. And we continuously have iterated and improved and delivered features on that. So with our latest release, we've added some features where when people brought in this kind of infrastructure in-house, they wanted to get to a place where, I think I saw this in one talk yesterday, which is, can I promote my jobs and make sure I'm bringing my jobs on test masters, and then I promote them to a production master. So there was a feature that we built where you have a test master that's connected to the Operations Center, and then you can seamlessly promote that to a different master within the organization. Then we started seeing the needs as people started scaling, and they brought in the reference architecture and had multiple masters. And at some point, your master has become too heavily loaded, what you want to do is split it. So you could split the masters and just move jobs from one master and to another master. So it kind of helps people sort of easily transition from this monolithic architecture to a more horizontal architecture. The top feature is fairly new. I think we've just pushed it out in the last couple of sprints. And the last feature that we released in the last cycle, which was May, was this ability to trigger jobs between masters. So you've built this architecture. Now you want to call, in your pipeline, call a job from the dev team to a QA master sitting elsewhere. So you could do that as well. And I keep forgetting. So I left a couple of slides as you look through the slides later on. That kind of gives you the details of what's in the platform. And so I won't take any more time with that. And then the last thing that we've done in the last few months is release the platform on Amazon Web Services. And we are also working towards releasing some things on Azure. So the idea here is you have an operations center and you have a lot of teams, each with their own master, and you want to share slave resourcing across these masters. You can use the Amazon pack to set the configuration up at the operations center and then seamlessly push that across your entire organization. So it makes the life of an admin easier. And we've done something similar on the Azure and the Pivotal side of things. So that's who we are. And with that out of the way, I think let's get into the Jenkins and Docker part of the story.
Right. Okay. So this part is actually mostly demo driven. So I talked about yesterday, the kind of Docker integration features we are building. So here I wanted to actually show most of these plugins in live. Now there are two. The situation that I want you to have in your mind is that you're working for, let's say, a company that's running the web services, let's say a microservices. So you got one team that's producing this base image foundation that contains the right version of Tomcat that's security hardened and whatnot. And then so that's done by the platform team. That's the stuff on the left-hand side. So there's a source code tree that hosts those, which in Jenkins job that builds a Docker image and that gets published as a base image. Now, there are the other teams building applications. They have a source code in their own source tree, and then what they do is there's a Jenkins job that's the picking up the source tree and then building the application image on top of the base image that the company has produced, and then that's the one that goes into the productions. So here. What we want to do is, let's see, so this is my Jenkins instance. Actually, let me make sure that I'm logged in. So here I have the base image built. So this is done by the platform team. So if you look at the source code of this guy, it contains the Docker file that basically builds a Tomcat, and then that's this quote-unquote company customization, which is setting the Tomcat configuration file. Now, the actual build, if you look at how this job is defined, this is a standard freestyle project, and so it's checking out the source code from this Git repository. And then it's using a Docker build and publish plugin down here. So what this plugin is doing is it's building an image and then publishing it to the Docker hub, and by using this credential that's specified. So even if I have hundreds of build slaves, every time I do the build, it uses the right credential to be able to push it into the repo. And then that's where this is ends. There's nothing more. So as a platform team, I don't really have any knowledge of what teams are actively using my image. So on top of it, there's now a separate team that's building the application. So this is actually defined as a workflow. So what we do is, if you look at the source code of this guy, actually let me look at the job configuration first. All it's really doing is specifying where the source code repository is here in the GitHub repository, and then they run in the workflow from there. The other interesting thing about it is, when do you want to execute this job? So, obviously, whenever the source code changes in the GitHub, but also, if one of the base image changes, then I want to be able to rerun the build. So, imagine a security vulnerability like the Heartbleed. So we realize that the version of the Tomcat or the SSL library has issues. So the platform team needs to produce a new image. When that happens, all the app also needs to be built. So that's what this is trying to do. And the beauty about it is, we don't really need to tell Jenkins exactly what images it needs to, to look for the changes, because the workflow and then the Docker support talks to each other. We can automatically figure out what images the build relies on, and then it does the right thing. Now, so this is the actual app. The app itself is kind of defined as a Maven build. So there's a Docker file that turns this into a container. It starts from the base image that the platform team has produced, and then we put the app that we are going to build inside this container, and then that's the end of it. So that's pretty straightforward. The pipeline definition is in this Jenkins file, and then this one is easy enough, hopefully, but still probably is worth explaining. So it has 3 stages, so line 2, 9, and 12, and then so we have a build which uses Maven to build, and then the package, and then which creates a Docker images and deploy. The stuff under build is a little bit hairy. So what's going on is, this is actually also using Docker as a build environment. So imagine you're product developers, you want to make sure that your build environment has the right version of the JDK or the specific version of Maven with certain configuration files, or define bugs with the right filtering rule already pre-installed. So what this does is so that's this image. So this is the build environment image that contains all that right tool, and then you create them and prepare them somewhere else. Now, as a build start, what Jenkins is going to do is to launch that tooling container and then run these 3 following steps inside that container. So we check out the source code, and then we run the Maven install, which is build the Java web applications. And then finally, we kind of pull out the raw file, which is the binary that's built as a result of this build. And then in line 7, we close the scope, meaning this is where the tooling container is gone. So all the intermediate files, any leftover, it's all cleaned up nicely. And then in the line 10, we're going to do the Docker build, which built the image by adding this WAR file into the container, as we saw. And then finally, the result gets pushed. And then deployment step is a little bit involving for this demo, but it's like a pushing this container up and then running it in its own location. So what I'm going to do is to simulate how the whole thing is put together. So imagine now we discover the security vulnerability. So I am going to sort of change, as a platform guy, I'm going to make a change to the server configuration file. So here, let me make the font a little smaller. So let's say I discover that, well, let's say I need to see doing it in small screen is making this a little bit interesting challenge. But so imagine like the vulnerability that, I'm exposing the details of the Tomcat version I'm running, which is not good. So I'm going to change this to another meaningless values. Right? So this is the actual value, the server header that the HTTP response is going to contain. So I'm going to just, let's say, fix the security vulnerability and then commit this change straight in. So if I go back to the Jenkins instance, Jenkins already got the notification from GitHub, and then so started building the base image. And then this is where, so now I think it's already finished building and publishing the image app into the Docker Hub. And then what's supposed to happen next if this push goes through? The number of layers is kind of amazing here. So it successfully pushed the image. So it went up to the Docker Hub, and now we are waiting for the Docker Hub to send us back this notification, hey, there's a new version, the new image. And then while I was talking, Jenkins has figured out that, the app depends on it, so let's make sure that it gets built. So now the workflow had started building. So there's all these stages are getting executed right now. So you see this is a part of the CloudBees Jenkins platform feature, building a new image. So all the standard Maven build is going on. The packaging is, so now now the container is getting deployed. So so this is a log file. Let's see, let me make the font a little smaller. Not that it's really important here, but it's getting pushed. And then finally, when it's done, the deployment is complete. So this is the app that's actually running. So to prove that it has actually finished building, is that debug? I think it's verbose. So if you look at the server header, it has been correctly updated, so it has delivered the fix. Now, the other neat things about this workflow Docker support is that we have the traceability support here. So if you look at the build that's just happened, we know that, well, the Jenkins workflow knows that these are the images that you have used. So here's the one that's, I guess, the app image that was built. This is the one that's the build environment, so used as a tooling container. And this is also the base image, and it keeps track of exactly where that base image came from. So that came from base image build 34. So we can look at this changelog to see, oh, it contains the security vulnerability fix we needed to see. So that's the kind of ability so that you can see where in the applications your fix has been deployed. All right, so I need to kind of speed up here. So now I'm going to change. So this demo so far is for people who are using container as a unit of deployment, right? And then it's probably, I think a lot of you here are not building web application. Maybe you're building embedded applications or the appliances or stuff like that. But those people are still benefiting from, they can still benefit from Jenkins and Docker integration. So this is the situation that I wanted to talk about, how you can use Docker to run Jenkins. So the first situation I'm going to talk about is if you are the Jenkins administrator, right, you have the tens of build slaves, you're responsible for creating this coherent, the homogeneous build environment for your team. Now, if you can use Docker to define that environment and massively deploy them, then that makes your job kind of easy. So Jenkins lets you do that by using a Docker plugin, which is historically the first Docker-related integration that came into being in the community. So what you do here is, you as a system administrator define what's called a cloud. So here you specify where your Docker backend is running and a few information like that. But more critically, so you specify the Docker image that is the slave image, and then you associate that with a label. So I called it standard. So imagine like this, my company provides a quote-unquote standard build environment, and then this particular container has that. So with that, what I could do, so that's all that the administrator has to do. And as a user, I can configure a job on my Jenkins, and then all I have to say is to make sure that the build is tied to the standard label. And then now, if I do a build, Jenkins kind of makes this mental connection that, this job wants to run on the standard build environment, which is this container. So I'm going to talk to the Docker backend, provision a new build slave, launch a container, send the Jenkins agent over, start the build, which is clearly not, okay, here it came. Oh, for a moment I worried, but now it's starting a new build slave, and then now it started executing a build. And then after a while, since in this case there's nothing else going on, this build slave will disappear. So again, you get this like a constant, clean, isolated build environment for every build. So that was the kind of second case. And now the third case is if you're a Jenkins user, and then you are dealing with like an unresponsive Jenkins administrator. Imagine your administrator has to deal with hundreds of teams. They don't have enough time to make sure that the tool you need is available. So you can also take a matter in your own hands by defining the build environment inside your job definition as well. So this is what we call the Docker custom build environment. So in this case, the guy who is in control is the guy who is configuring the job. So here, I'm checking this build inside a Docker container and specifying the build image. So again, if I do the build, the end result is more or less the same. You do the build, and then the build would start, and then in this case, it's supposed to have started inside a permission denial, right? So that's new. Maybe. So the end result is it's going to start a new container, and it ran the build inside, and then when it's finished, the container will also go on. So again, you always have this clean, isolated build environment, but it guarantees that it allows you, the project author, to do the control. So that was the kind of this demo rather quickly. So what you saw was first, I showed the Jenkins workflow as the means of creating continuous delivery pipeline to use, where the Docker images is a unit of deployment. And the other one that I talked about is by using the Docker container as a build environment. And this can be, for example, combined with something like Klaviyo's Jenkins Operations Center that he talked about earlier to create really like the homogeneous build environment across masters. And then third, we did something similar using a container as a separate, isolated build environment, but we gave the developer the control, people who are configuring jobs get to decide exactly which images they're going to use. So it caters to different use cases. And then this Docker work is very important for us, so we started taking this on to the other area. So we've been developing the Kubernetes plugin. I believe there's going to be a talk about that either yesterday or today. And then the workflow is also a big part of it, as we saw. So, all right, so there is that. I think we are coming back to the Tiger, so or more officially called Klaviyo's Jenkins Platform 5x SaaS Edition. So
all right.
I'll have the Harpreet kick it off.
So we are at 2 deploys for the talk. That's the new metric that I'm starting.
For the talk.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the new metric that I'm going to measure from now on. How many deploys can we do in a talk? The reason why we talked about the Jenkins platform in the first part was to sort of set context of how we see sort of adoption happening within organizations. And what we saw was this level of automation coming down to departments. But increasingly, the use case is becoming, I would say, more granular. And the way this starts off is as people come in and listen to guys like Jim, as he said, Gene, as he said, CEOs go back and ask their organizations on how can I deliver software faster? Because delivering software faster is now a competitive advantage, as Gene made the case. And typically, if you kind of goes down and it comes down to our level, it's like a dev tools organization that's responsible for bringing CI and CD across the organization. So that's the use case that the private SaaS edition or Tiger is targeting. And when that requirement comes in, and I'm sure a number of you have sort of been on that route in the last year, is it translates into how do we provision masters for teams within the organization? How can I actually provision, not even for teams, but for projects? How can I provision stuff for slaves faster for teams? That's where sort of the sharing of slaves across masters comes into place. And then there's always the case of building an administrative front end to the guys who are launching the CI/CD infrastructure within the organization. And that typically involves, single sign-on and so on. And the last part here is sort of resilience to infrastructure failures. So these are sort of the core requirements that I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years as we've seen people sort of roll out Jenkins en masse. And this was personified by a company in the Bay Area that I can't name, but they have like 3,000 people. They wanted to roll out CD. It was beyond Jenkins. It was Git, Go, and Get It. And it took them about 1.5 years to roll that out, 1.5 years to 2 to roll that out. It cost them a few $1 million. They were really happy about it. However, sort of what you could clearly see is what was happening was internally they've built this customized snowflake that now a few heroes that sort of led the effort are solely responsible for maintaining. So they had like a huge ops team to just manage that infrastructure. Because the guys who built it were building managed services and had not built something about that sort of is cloud scale. So for example, we have a Jenkins as a service called Cloudbees Dev at Cloud, where we run a few thousand masters that's run by a very lean ops team. And if you're trying to sort of roll this internally, you don't have that expertise to bring it at that scale. The cost of stabilization was hidden. There was, I think it took them a few months to stabilize this. And so overall, about 1.5 years from the time they wanted to roll out a CD as a service to getting it out of the door and getting it to the first few customers. And that's where internally we started looking at what we've done with Cloudbees Jenkins as a service, Dev at Cloud, and trying to bring that to a wider audience. And that effort was called Tiger. So what we wanted to do was bring the same cloud scale implementation into organizations. You can have that running in your in-house. It's supposed to be battle tested because we've run this for about 3 or 4 years. And the idea is you bring it in and you have your own internal cloud. And we are launching this with on Amazon, AWS, and on OpenStack by Red Hat. And the key idea here is, again, you don't need to pay like 1.5 years, 2 years to get a turnkey solution to kick off a CI/CD as a service. We want to cut down the time to market, and the infrastructure should be just resilient from get-go. The other benefits here was there are no snowflakes. Because this is built on Jenkins, it's on Jenkins LTS, you're not on a custom branch of Jenkins that you are maintaining from here on. It's fairly supportable. And then we can bring in some of the features that we've had from the Jenkins platform in terms of analytics, metrics, and you can bring that in to get insights into all these masters running in. And the key sort of paradigm shift is you're no longer thinking in terms of like one master per team, but it's so lightweight that you can actually just say, I have a new project that's coming on board, let me go and provision something for you, and underneath it goes and creates a master for you. So that's sort of the idea here. So you end up with because we've run this with Dev Cloud, you end up with a sort of a leaner ops team to manage this infrastructure. So that's sort of the context. Does it make sense? All right. With that out of the way, I'd like Kohsuke to talk to the specific features, and we can demo.
Right. Okay. So so that's the kind of idea, right? What does it take to let people run Jenkins at a massive scale? So it needs to be basically a service. So the cloud is giving you the software. So in that sense, it is a packaged software, but you in turn then operate that as a service to the rest of the company. And as Harpreet said, we are looking for time to deliver getting the result very quickly, which means we want to come in, instead of having like a 48-point checklist for setting up, we actually have a script that you only need to edit a few configuration parameters, and you get the entire Tiger environment launched in the order of tens of minutes. And then it's building on top of all the existing features of the cloud-based Jenkins platform. If you think about the fact that there are ops team that's running DevOps Cloud only have people I can count in single hand, when they manage thousands of services, they rely on a lot from the features that we're building from the CJOC and so on. So that's what we are building this feature for. So analytics and cluster operations and so on, it's all available. And if you have existing build environment, the build slaves that needs to be running on some existing cloud setup, let's say you have some specific AMI that your team is supposed to be using for building them, then you can use our hybrid cloud roasting, so you can connect your entire Tiger deployment, all the masters inside it, and then have them talk to this like a cloud as a build slave to create this elastic build environment. Now, the key part of Tiger is this idea of the multi-tenanted masters and slaves. So the idea is you have a relatively static set of big honking boxes, and our software will multi-tenant them, basically put each different masters and slaves inside its Docker containers. And then in that way, we can derive a lot of values. So one of the obvious benefits is that it reduces the cost because you're packing a lot more things inside single boxes. But it also allows us to very quickly allocate both masters and slaves. So, for example, we have an API call that lets you spin up a new master, and then the new guys come up pretty quickly. And also, even more so for slaves, where the time to provision is more pronounced because that's the time that the developers wait for their build to go off. So that is some of the key benefits. The last point, I'll come back to it later. Now, in the world of Tiger, you're no longer thinking about the individual masters, but only thinking about them in aggregate, right? We are talking about the hundreds or even thousands of masters. So analytics is becoming is incredibly important in this time because the only way for you to keep track of them is by statistically you're aggregating them. So for example, with Jenkins Analytics, you can get all the build results out of individual masters centrally aggregated into the Elasticsearch, and you can run queries and graphing and so on. So it's a great means to keep track of the progress of continuous delivery across teams. The other analytics we collect is around the health of the Jenkins masters and build slaves. So again, you don't want to individually monitor these Jenkins masters that your users are using. So what we let you do is to automatically collect this information, and then you can spot the outliers without spending any times on the individual machines. And finally, you want to be able to show, well, which team is using how much resources, because you, in a way, is on the hook for running all these big clusters of tens or hundreds of machines, and that money that needed to run them has to come from somewhere. So we are trying to help you show, well, exactly how many build is going on in this master, how many total combined minutes are consumed, and so on. So you can use that to distribute the cost among different customers that uses the Tiger. Now also in the world of Tiger, if you are the operating Tiger, that's a very different role from people who are running individual Jenkins masters. So we recognize this role separation between the Tiger administrator, who is more interested in keeping the entire clusters up and running, separate from the client master administrator. So this guy, the second role is probably more embedded inside each team. He's in charge of installing and selecting the right version of plugin, helping the team, developers in the team to set up the jobs, that kind of things. So it's already codified from the get-go so that you can start using Tiger quite productively. Now, from the resource point of view, so this is how it's going to look like. So again, like I said, in the middle, you have a big clusters of computing resources, the big honking boxes. Now, this is where I come back to one of the earlier point about the multi-tenancy. So even though you're providing this incredible elasticity both in masters and build slaves, the total number of capacity doesn't have to change all that frequently. So at Sun, for example, it takes the matter of weeks or even months to get the new virtual machine provision from the IT ops. That's the kind of pace often the large company would operate in. But you can use that kind of relatively slow IT and then turn around and still provide this fast elasticity to the users of Jenkins as a service, which is great. And because you don't really care about where the masters or build slaves are running, there's a HTTP reverse proxy sitting in front, so that's part of Tiger. And when the request comes in, it'd be able to distribute the load to the right backend. And finally, behind the scene, we need a big storage to be able to store all the Jenkins home. As you know, Jenkins needs a persistent file storage to be able to keep on. So that's the major components of Tiger. So imagine, right, so you have the wildcard domain ci.example.com all assigned. And then in this Tiger environment, we have two big honking boxes running three masters, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. There's also CJOC running, but that's acting as a brain. So this is the point in time. The users would come into, let's say, alpha.ci.example.com. The front-end web tier will make sure that the right master gets the workload. Now, the build slaves are also multi-tenanted from the same pool of resources. So if one of the masters realizes that, oh, I need to do a new build, I need build slaves to do it, and then it talks to the brain of Tiger, which figure out one of the available nodes to start the build slave on. And then it will do that, and then it connects them to the Jenkins master for the duration of the build, and then it disappears again into the ether. So that's the kind of experience you provide. You're no longer statically configuring build slaves. It happens all elastically. Now, the great thing about this kind of location transparency, the fact that you don't really care about where stuff is running, is that if something bad happens to one of the masters, so let's say maybe the deadlock happens or the memory went over or something like that, and then Tiger notices that one of the master is lost. And then so it will automatically ensure that the master will reschedule the master, maybe somewhere else, depending on the availability of the cluster. And then it will make sure that the right storage is attached to the right node and then get that going. So in this way, I guess as a Tiger administrator, you don't really, again, have to worry about the individual well-being of the master because the cluster will automatically ensure that the stuff is running. You only have to worry about this whole compute environment. So that is the premise. Now, so what I'm going to do is actually, I'm trying to be even more brave and try to set up the Tiger demo live. So this is like where we start. We provide this, the Tiger is in the single command line tool. So what I can do is the Tiger init project, let's see, workspace. So this creates all the necessary stuff under this workspace, which is pretty simple. And then I'm going to edit this file, which is basically a configuration file that specifies the topology of the network. So like you can say how many workers you need and so on. And then this includes the AWS credentials, so I prepared this file up front. So I'm just going to copy this in into here. Oh. So it's copied in here, and then I'm going to just run Tiger init in here. So what this is now starts doing is it's launching the entire cluster, starting or however many nodes necessary, front end or the back end and everything.
This is doing this on AWS.
Ah, what's that? Oh, maximum number of VPC has been reached. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. All right, so that was a failure on my part. But as you can see, like this is going to start taking its own time. So because it takes a little more than, I figure that you probably don't want to scroll, like watch all this text scroll by. So I have a pre-launched environment already to do the rest of the demo.
But so that one was launching that on AWS, right? It was
yeah.
Those
so that was creating all the instances. If maybe I can stop using VPC, right? Since maybe I'll be brave enough to deviate from the prepared demo scenario, and then maybe I can stop using VPC.
I feel we can go for a
key. Danger. All right, maybe I shouldn't do that. Okay, you didn't see that key. So I'm going to.
So close to the third deployment for the talk.
Yeah. All right, I need to reset that key because I think it's getting recorded. So this is the danger of deviating out from the scenarios. But anyway, so this is the launched environment that I created up front. So after like 10 minutes or so, it gets to this point. So this is the master brain behind it. And then, so what I can do, for example, is I can create a new master. So here I'm going to say that's a golf. And then I specify that I'm creating a new master. So let's say your new project is coming on board, so you're going to start the new master for it. So I just have to specify. Well, I didn't actually have to do anything in this case. I bumped up the CPU slice so that this gets to run a little faster. And behind the scene, what's going on is that our brain is figuring out which of the available nodes we can put this new master on, and then it starts that container, and then that's allocate the right storage. In this case, I believe we are using the NFS, like a big server that's run NFS, but we are working on supporting the EBS-backed storage. And then it will come up and it will do the proper negotiation with the JUC and then prepare itself for the build. So I hope it's going to start soon enough. Let's say I'll help it by deleting these old masters. So I can also delete the old one, and then it will all disappear. Let's see. So that's all right. So this is the underlying cluster could be as big as you need. In this case, this demo environment only has a small number of available machines, but we imagine that you'd be running tens or even hundreds of them, and then it's kind of taking longer than I hoped for. So I don't know what's going on there. Oh, okay. So now it started and got connected and got this new URL basically. So there's a longish name here, but it's basically the point is there's a golf dot something something. So if I go there, it's hopefully starting a new Jenkins master here. As a Tiger administrator, you can specify the version of Jenkins to run. In this case, it's running a specific version of the Jenkins master, but we should be able to let you choose arbitrary versions. And this master that we started doesn't really have any build slave attached. If you see, it's completely empty. So it has no capacity to run the build on its own because it's supposed to get all the build resources from the cloud. From Tiger. So what I'm going to show you is let's create a new job just so that we can see that the build is going on. And so what I'm going to do is just quickly make sure that the build does happen somewhere else. And I'm going to run the canonical, like a sleep 10 as a build.
Can we count this as a deployment?
Yeah, I guess we deployed a new master.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's the count now? 3?
3.
Yeah. Oh no, I did start a new version of things. So that's I guess I started a new Tiger. So that should be 4.
All right.
So as we were talking about it, it's already trying to bring the new slave on board. So it's got the new build going here, and then that's from then on, it's basically like a regular Jenkins. So it's doing the build, and then it'll keep the records. So I'm going to do the failover experiment here. So what I can do is...
You're unusually brave today.
Yeah. Well, I've already failed once, so what can go wrong more, right? So
turning fear into boredom. That's
yes,
the idea here.
Exactly. So what I can do is, so I'm going to simulate the failure of the Jenkins master. And Jenkins is so reliable, so I can't really kill it from the UI. So I'm going to go back into the back end and then try to sort of do the more post-process kill. So the trick here is to find the worker node, because I can't really tell where this the new master that I created is running. So I got 3 work nodes. I need to see where it is. So this is running. Nope, this is not it. So it's not running on the first worker node. So let me see. Maybe it's running on the second worker node. So the only trick for me is to look at the timestamp. Okay, so this master has started 4 minutes ago. So I bet that this is it. So I'm going to just basically force kill this master by killing the process. All right. So if I got lucky, then I should be able to reload this page. And yeah. So now you see that the reload is hanging here because the master went down. So what's happening is Tiger is noticing that this master is gone now, so we got to do something. And then so it's figuring out somewhere else to run it and then deploy the container and then doing all its magics to move the storage around to make sure that the service gets restored. So let's see, I can keep reloading it to see if it comes back up. The Jenkins does take a little bit of time to start, so I guess now it's ready to work. We can see if it's, I noticed that it tends to move around. Okay, so I guess it came back on the same node. So it looks like this is the least loaded node. So it happened to be scheduled on the same box. But you can, exact same thing work if you lose the entire box. So say, you have one of the big honking boxes running a dozen masters, and then somebody pulled the power plug on that box, then the whole thing is lost, but no worries, because again, the Tiger is distributing that workload into everywhere else. So again, the neat thing is it handles the storage automatically. So when it comes back, hopefully, let's see.
Turning fear into boredom.
Yeah. This part, I'm pretty sure.
We're waiting for the dots to go.
Yeah. So come on, Jenkins, you can do it. So so even if you have the dozen master lost all at the same time, provided that you have enough redundant capacity in the system, you'll be able to basically tolerate the loss of these master and then get them launched. So as a Tiger administrator, you don't really have to again worry about the health of individual masters, right? Each team might see a brief disruption like this, But again, at the end of the day, they come back up and you see all the build records that we just did the build. All these things are intact. So the company organization as a whole has minimum disruption to it. So that's the agenda. So the part of the demo here. So yes, I'm very happy to announce that this CloudBees Jenkins platform private SaaS edition is hit the alpha release today. The team has been really working hard, and so I'm very happy. And then if you're interested in talking to ask more about it, then you can either catch me or Harpreet or Patrick or Andy in the CloudBees booth, and they'll be able to show you, then play with you a little, hopefully, and explain you how it's put together. And we are also trying to talk to a small number of serious prospects who are interested in driving this product forward with us, to work with us to determine what it takes to call it the GA. So if you're interested in signing up for that kind of beta program, then we'd love to talk to you. So also come by our booth and then drop us a note. So yes, and then we are hiring because our collective boss is really greeting us on the hiring. So he's looking for the more product managers. We're looking for the evangelists, developer, sales. So basically anything that. So we need a lot of different people. This company is growing fast, and then so if you're interested in working with us, then so you should also drop us a note.
That's the lamest sell on hiring I've ever seen.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
You get to work as a technology evangelist with Kohsuke. That's all right.
Thank you. No, I can't say that myself.
Okay.
All right. So what was it? Yeah. So what we show in conclusion, what we are trying to show here, I think the Docker and Jenkins is a great combination if you're building this end-to-end continuous stability pipeline. And also, the CloudBees is taking this CloudBees Jenkins platform into two flavors: the team edition for smaller organizations, enterprise edition for even larger organizations. So that's where our current offerings are. And we are working on this exciting new addition to our portfolio, which is the CloudBees Jenkins Platform Private SaaS Edition, aka Tiger. That's really allow you to operate Jenkins as a service in massive scale inside your company. So I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you very much, and then talk to you.
Thank you.